Hey everybody, it's Geekmeister from the Geek for All show. With us we have the lovely Samantha, who was with us last year on the show. She's going to be coming back because, as far as we're concerned, she's instrumental for fact-checking our dumbasses.
Oh, thanks.
No, seriously, you were, and I've gotten lots of comments about that from people who used to listen to the show and stuff, like, you're getting Sam back, right? Because, like, you and Jimmy are entertaining, but she brings it all back down to a copacetic place where things make sense again.
I mean...
it's what you do. Next week, we're going to be launching our first episode in, like, over a year. We're going to... That's, like, the 5th Tuesday of this month, of May, that we're going to be doing that. But we are going to be, after that, returning to the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. We just figured with this month having 5 Tuesdays in it, and then you get, like, that normal week gap and everything, gave us a little bit more time to get things together and everything, so that's what we're doing. And we figured there's one major conversation that when me and Jimmy first started doing the unofficial Stone Sesh, we brought up that Sam was not privy to, and we want to make sure she got her 2 cents in on it. And then, of course, of our massively long first episode of Deadpool and Star Wars Force Awakens. So let's start with where it started. Star Wars Force Awakens was first around Christmas time.
Yes.
So, I mean, you liked the movie, right?
I did. We walked out of it that was it. Obviously, details, the fanatics, there were certain problems, but walking out of the theater, that was the funnest movie I've been to in a very long time.
I agree. Like, that was definitely my impression. Like, there's a lot of people, like, complaining about how it was just like the first Star Wars movie, and what Professor Weirdfuck said about it was it was, but it was like after a really, really scary period of time, it was like being returned to your mama's teat. It was like everything is gonna be okay.
Well, they were taking this new generation and making them familiar with it. So you're taking the new generation, not only of characters, but of fans. So you've got, the parents, these fans who are now parents, taking their kids to these movies and being like, here's the Star Wars world. You have to start at a place that's almost exactly familiar. It's just what you have to do. But at the same time, yes, it was, you could say, oh, well, they did this whole thing, there's even a Death Star, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, if you bring it to something familiar, it's gonna be that same feeling of we're home.
We're home. We're back.
We're back.
Yeah, no, it totally is a Death Star, and it was totally Tatooine. I raved about this in the first. Seriously, why could Jakku have not been Tatooine? I still don't understand. Like, you guys went so far out of your way to make it exactly like Tatooine, and then completely different than Tatooine.
Yeah.
And I was like, but just do Tatooine. Just do it. I don't understand what all this was about. But, it was minor stuff like that I had complaints with. Like, the movie was really phenomenal on a lot of levels. And I've mentioned this to you a few times, and I said it last time too. The best thing about the new films is the new trio.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's just, I don't understand, like, how they managed to capture Han, Luke, and Leia without at all having parallels to Han, Luke, and Leia. None of them are like those other characters.
No,
but
not like a carbon copy.
Right, but the group together makes
that.
up all the pieces somehow. It's amazing, really. And the thing that's crazy about it is that they weren't going to originally have Poe in for that long. He was supposed to die at the TIE Fighter scene, which is crazy.
And then that makes me wonder who the third would have been. Because that in the movies that don't exist, there was still a 3. It was Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And before Padme became a major character, it was Qui-Gon,
Obi-Wan,
and Anakin.
Anakin, yes.
Or Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Padme. So there's always a trio going on. So you have to wonder in the new movies, who would have been that third? Because if the story goes along that, if they didn't plan on okay, it's since December, so you.
Oh my God! No! We did spoilers in the first. No, go for it.
if they had planned on killing Han off at the end, in the beginning, like at the first thing they were like, we're gonna kill him off, whether it was contracting with Harrison Ford, which we can bitch about or whatever, because we all hate it.
It's what he wanted. Okay,
right.
He didn't like doing the films. It's okay. He doesn't have to.
Exactly. Which sucks because as a Han Solo fangirl, I love Han Solo.
Yeah, it is disappointing when the actor is not as into it as you are.
It sucks. Because we thrive on these actors like Mark Hamill, who
love everything that they do.
He loves everything that in Star Wars. He loves being the Joker. He loves playing all of his characters.
Yeah.
So, but back to the trio, you have to wonder who the third would have been if they were going to continue doing it. Because it's all about Rey. Obviously.
I mean, Rey is like the Luke parallel.
Like the Luke of the group.
But I mean, she's first of all, female, so there's that. But then she's got a lot of other Leia qualities in there too. But she's a badass pilot like Han Solo.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, again, you can't draw the parallels. It's amazing.
No, not the carbon copy parallels. But then you've got Finn. But then the third, there wasn't really a third.
Yeah.
Because we had an R2-D2 parallel in BB-8, who, thank God, was not like I sat for 6 months of merchandising, not wanting to buy anything. Because he's this cute little droid, and everyone's
I want you to be awesome.
I want you to be awesome. Jar Jar. We've been burned once before. And I kept looking at things like, fuck, that droid is so fucking cute. But I know the minute I buy something about him, he's gonna piss me off. And annoy me.
Except he didn't.
Except he didn't.
Wonderful.
Because he was amazing. Because you still had the R2-D2 humor and the attitude. And it wasn't annoying.
Yeah.
He wasn't an annoying sidekick or a side character. He was actually important.
He gave a thumbs up with a lighter.
Exactly.
That was like the most amazing thing ever. Like that may have been the movie was amazing for a lot of reasons, but that may have been my favorite part.
But just like you get, again, the familiarity of this droid that doesn't speak, but has this attitude.
But it's so clear. His intentions are so clear. Like, and that was the thing. That was what was amazing about R2 is that you never understood what R2 was saying.
But you knew exactly.
You knew exactly what he was doing. You know exactly what he was getting on about.
Yeah.
And some of that was because the dialogue was carefully picked so that you could catch on to that. But some of it was just genuinely like that R2 just like swore up a storm at somebody.
Exactly.
And BB-8 was exactly the same. Like
it's the same kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Same kind of and. If you watch the documentary that's attached to it, that's about BB-8, the behind the scenes, like we all know, they built BB-8 as like a whole thing, like they built him, and then they had him on like for the big running scenes. They had one where it was a guy in an all green suit and then sticks attached to him so he could run him across the sand in Jakku. But there were certain scenes where there was just a guy with a remote control just controlling him, and cast members would pass the droid on set and be like, "What's up, BB-8?" And BB-8 would respond because it was all about the head nods and the sounds, like the where you sit, or like we have an R2 unit in our house, and he's not a big R2 unit; he's a small one, but he makes those noises.
Yeah. And
like you can tell, like when his head swivels a different way, and he makes the sad sound, or he dances, but he dances like there's one command where hey R2, do you remember Darth Vader? And he shakes, like the whole unit shakes,
like that whole like
exactly. And then you ask him to dance, and it's a really sad version of the Cantina song. Like he doesn't want to do it, but because you asked him to do it, so you get that familiarity.
That is an awesome bad investment.
It was the best. Just split decision of like we're gonna buy this thing because we can, and it was off of like, oh my god, what are those magazines that are in airplanes?
Oh my god, Sky Mall! You gotta have a Sky here.
Yeah, it was a Sky Mall purchase. So you get like in this little droid, you get the same familiarity as R2, and he's a he's not just like a prop.
Yeah, no.
He's like the Millennium Falcon, where it's because you get all these great movies and great shows. Doctor Who, Serenity, Star Wars, where the ships become characters.
Yes.
Same thing. This thing that doesn't actually have it has its own intentions, but it's programmed to have its own intentions.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, do you have free will?
Yeah.
I think you have free will.
Oh, the droid free will thing is always an interesting conversation within Star Wars. And which is why I think it was great in the original ones that all of them were animatronic. Yeah. And I love that they went back to that with this because not only for BB-8 but for so many other like creatures and stuff that in the prequels they had chosen to do CGI basically for like pretty much all their aliens and stuff.
Anything. The backgrounds, they were on green screen.
You got makeup and costumes, and you've got like fully animatronic puppets that are like like Yoda style and stuff. Like there was one that they paraded around Comic-Con, and like you actually can see it when she's trying to get rations, I think for the first time in the movie when she's trying to get rations, it like walks up behind her like it's this weird thing with like a cage on top of it. And it was just amazing. Like you could like some people for some reason really get fooled by the CGI thing, but I think most of us like kind of recognize when it's got that because it's animated.
It's a suspension of disbelief.
Yes, yeah, and I mean the thing is that like when as much as you can get away with like the practical effect, it sells it better in my opinion because it just looks it looks more real because it is real. It's technically real. You are actually seeing a real effect taking place, and so it connects. You know, like Kill Bill, for instance, like you know, it's not super realistic, but the fact that you actually have gallons of fake blood gushing out of everybody really changes the way that movie feels. Because if it had been CGI, like it doesn't have that same impact as holy crap, they are just like unloading that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so yeah, I was ecstatic that they went back to the animatronics and you know getting away from CGI as much as they could. I mean, J.J. Abrams is amazing when it comes to practical effects. I think he's got that philosophy that like if I can do it with a practical effect, I will, and I will fill in everything else with CGI later. And that's what it should be. CGI is the polish and the impossible. You know, anything that it like. The first Star Trek movie, the jump down to the drill. A lot of people would suspect that was done like on a green screen, and they shot them in. No, outside with mirrors.
Yeah.
What? And then like, okay, with the shaking of the camera, J.J. Abrams behind the camera, bongoing the camera, like while the camera guy's like trying to take their shot and everything. And it worked. There was something. It's so organic and it feels so natural. And he brought all of that to Star Wars, and it was really, really impressive. Now here's my one thing. What do you think was supposed to be going on with that map? Because there was a story there that they did not have time to tell clearly.
I think that was I rewatched it once we bought the Blu-ray. And I found myself tuning out when it came to the map because I was like, really? Luke set in the same fucking like a map. Like
especially when you see where it fits into the galaxy, like nobody figured that out. It's the tiniest little like, and it was like it's like oh, there's a gap in the bigger galaxy map. Well, why don't you explore it? It looks pretty small.
Yeah, I think that was one of the few things I didn't like.
Yeah.
Was that there's an obvious story between... And, like, they talk about how it was in R2's system, like, in his memory banks, and I don't think they talk about it in the movie, but it was, like, a fan theory or something that was... Those maps were part of the download from the Death Star. So, in the original trilogy, when he downloads all of that information...
part of it is about an uncharted sector of space.
That's how he gets that map.
See, an excellent...
That's original map.
You guys couldn't have put 5 more minutes in for that?
No, they had to do
that little bit of exposition?
They had to do all those cool Millennium Falcon chases and dogfighting.
Well, no, they did need to do all of that, because that was amazing. No, but what apparently they needed to do was the last, 30 seconds of that awkward scene with Rey.
Yeah, that was super weird.
Like
it was like the Lord of the Rings.
You cut back to Mark Hamill so many times that you made him do.
Yeah.
You made him what? He didn't want to make that choice. There's no way he wanted to do that move. You just left him with no other options. You just kept the camera on him, like, look surprised and stoic.
Yeah.
I kind of am. We'll add more to it. I can nod. Perfect. It's brilliant. Oh God.
Yeah. We were watching it and we're like, okay, it could have ended right there. And just been, he turns around, he sees her, and even, the shot of her holding it out, just be, seeing her hold it out, and then just done. You didn't need the panning helicopter shot.
And
you didn't need any of that.
Oh, it was...
Just black.
Because it got comical after. That was the problem. It got really, really, I was just expecting someone to be like, is somebody going to talk? Like Monty Python should have suddenly come out with a weird animated statue just flop. Or
the meme where it's that had a hand attached to it. Did you take
the hand?
Exactly. No, that was the only downfall, was that there were certain points in it that you could tell they had focused so much on the good stuff that there were fall moments.
There were actually Well, you know Nathan. You know Nathan. So our buddy Nathan put it this way. He really gets hard on that movie, but for the most glorious reason, because he's like, it was that close to perfect.
Yeah.
Like, they screwed up a handful, like, literally about 5 things. We've got that end scene, which, despite being cut at the wrong point, was a little bit weird in there in the first place. The natural ending to that plot line is her flying away to find Luke. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad Mark Hamill was in this. We needed that as fans. I'm totally on board and everything. But you have to realize that you're already playing with fire, and you can't overplay your hand in any of that. Like, you're already adding a scene that doesn't technically need to be there. Just get in, get out. And I get it, it's Star Wars. We don't want an after the credits sequence thing with it. It feels weird, honestly. Like, we thought about that. Like, I know you and I talked about that. It was just like,
well, especially for a movie that still has the old school 70s crawl, the old school 70s, like, the beginning 30 seconds of that movie feels like you're watching the old school 70s part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's got the Arial font, a long time ago in Galaxy.
How much was your heart, like, just like, oh, when that, like, just popped up?
It was amazing. And because I think a lot of it was also because I don't remember watching the prequels in theaters. We were too young, I think, to really appreciate. I wasn't really into Star Wars. I was like, oh, this thing's kind of cool and, whatever. But I never got that, like, oh my god, this is what they are, until I got to see this. And like, I think if I had seen the original trilogy in theaters, which they did end up showing, I would have gotten that feeling too. But when Force Awakens came out and the crawl started, every time, like, you see a character in a TV show or, like, fanboys where they're like, it's the crawl, it's the crawl, it's the crawl. That was the feeling. That was the feeling.
Well, see, and I understand the feeling of the crawl because my like, here's how fucking geeky I am. My first memory, I'm not kidding at all, is watching the original trilogy with my family as a kid. I was 4 years old. My parents decided that they were done, and my dad's like, well, I am nerding the shit out of all of these kids. And for 3 nights in a row, we watched the 3, like, so, like, that did definitely hit me as, like, a kid. But after The Phantom Menace, it was already kind of, like, I was already in the zone of, like, well, that was cool, because I'm young, and there were some exciting things happening. Jar Jar was weird. Yeah. And like, there was already, like, weird, and by the time I got to the third one, it was that. And with this, it was just, something looked right about it, like, right from the beginning. Like, not only was the story, was it a Star Wars story, not only did it have that feel, it had the look. That was the thing. The prequels didn't look like a Star Wars movie when you get right down to it. Other than the lightsabers, like, that was the most Star Wars-y looking part of the whole thing. This looked like Star Wars. Like, right, everything about it just felt like a Star Wars movie.
Well, and even just, like you say, the lightsabers, but even the combat, and there's a reasoning for it, but the combat in the prequels is different.
It's bad.
And they talk about it because, and it makes sense because the Jedi are still a thing. They're still teaching each other on a consistent basis. So the idea that the combat is more advanced.
See, it's not advanced. It looks more it's more acrobatic. Here's the thing. If you go back and watch those films.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in a very long time. So.
Watch the pattern. Up, low, low, high, across the top. You will see that happen at least 8 times during a fight. And that's the thing, like, they keep, like, they'll establish one pattern, and then they'll keep doing it. They'll just throw a bajillion twirls in between them, and then that pattern continues to establish itself again and again and again. Which the biggest problem is while it looks flashy, it's not telling a story.
Right.
You have no context of who's winning that fight, what the stakes are, who's angry about it, who's calm. Those kind of things are really important in good storytelling as far as violence. If you're going to include violence in your film, it should enhance the story.
Right, and not just be there.
And yeah. And it was just there in the prequels. Whereas this, oh my god, who was winning versus who was losing, what the state, everything. So clear. The intentions were just out there without any kind of verbalization. And it was... Now, I will, again, one of Nathan's complaints, and I kind of see what he's talking about. The one between Rey and Kylo Ren goes on a tad bit long. It's just a little too long. There's, like, a couple of moments that you really don't need in there, and you could have tightened it up, and it would have felt a little bit more like a real swords fight. And also, like, the Deus Machina of, like, her not, like, having to choose whether or not to kill him and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of like, that's weak sauce, bro.
Yeah.
But other than those, like, it was beautiful, like... And it was great watching a lightsaber get used like a katana. And then it was really interesting watching a lightsaber get used as an English longsword versus katana stuff. That was interesting to watch. Like,
Yeah.
Me and Jimmy talked about this a little bit. That's the interesting thing to watch about Ren, is that he's super powerful, incredibly strong with force powers. He is a shitty swordsman.
Well, and that kind of, like, the whole lightsaber thing, the reason it crackles and pops is that it's not refined.
Yeah.
And he has no control over it. So, the fact that he's shitty at dueling with a lightsaber makes sense. That he's so focused on the Force and, like, because that's what he loves about his grandfather, is that he was this really powerful Jedi, powerful Force user. To him, yes, that lightsaber belongs to me. His lightsaber, the red one, is not his. To him, it's not. It's something he crafted, but it's crafted out of rage and anger.
And he wants Anakin Skywalker.
He wants Anakin's lightsaber. So when he says to Rey, that lightsaber belongs to me, that's mine.
For the record, that may be one of the most powerful Force objects in the universe right now. Like, holy crap. Like, if you think about the lineage of that thing.
Just the history behind it.
Yeah.
So the idea that Rey, Ren has this attachment to this lightsaber, which, by the way, the fact that Rey, that moment where she grabs it out of the snow, like she force pulls it out of the snow and catches it, I still get chills. I get fucking chills when it zooms past him, because at first you're like, oh, he's gonna grab it, and then it zooms past him and into her hand is just like, I get chills.
Yeah.
I get absolute chills. And people bitch like, oh, she's super strong and like, what a Mary Sue and blah blah blah. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit.
It is worth it for that moment, but I really do wish, again, like another 5 minutes to explain like where she got that idea from.
Right. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, if you think about people in general, like in real life or whatever, the adrenaline of surviving, people do amazing things in that adrenaline.
That is true. And that's actually a really good point. It might just be an adrenaline kick is kicking what she can already do into high gear. Totally fair.
Just out of survival. Because then we could see her training with Luke, and it's all of a sudden, Dagobah, where she's standing on her head and failing to lift rocks.
Now, about Ren's thing with Vader, what do you think of the fan theory that's going around that Kylo Ren is a double agent?
I love it, and I want it to be true. Because, okay, so Kylo Ren was this whole, and I've talked about it so many times to other people too, is that Kylo Ren was presented as this Darth Vader stand-in, like he's super cool and he's super badass with the mask, and then he takes the helmet off, and I was super disappointed. Like, there's a lot of fangirls who are like, oh my god, Kylo Ren. Not to, like, hate on anybody. If you like him, you like him. I think he's a punk bitch. I don't like him. He's not who I imagine, like, just in looks alone. If you take young Han Solo, again, Han Solo fangirl, and I am all about Han and Leia, like, as a thing, and, like, the fact that I did not get an I love you and I know from this movie pisses me off. Makes me super angry.
That would have been really nice. That would have been very, very good.
The idea that he's still...
Although we get a chance to watch it happen between Ren and Leia.
We do.
Which
I want.
That had better fucking happen.
I need
Guys,
reconciliation.
make it happen.
I need reconciliation. I need Ren to be good. I need him to be Ben. Because I feel like the idea that he's a double agent and that he's... If you haven't heard this fan theory, the fan theory is that he's a double agent to take down...
The First Order.
The First Order.
And the Sith in general. Like, he's basically gone with this idea of, what if I could temperament the dark side? What if I could walk that line and still wind up being in the light and everything? And that whole speech then about, I don't know if I can do what I have to do, is not like I don't know if I can come back to the light, and I'm going to kill you anyway. It's we both know that I have to kill you now. Like, if I let you walk out of here, they're going to know everything, and I'm terrified to do... Which would explain why the hesitation with, like, why that scene went so long with the back... Because that was another part where the back and forth was a little bit much. But if it's under that context, that is different. That is a whole other thing, because, first of all, who knows if he turned it on? Maybe Han turns it on. Maybe Han slowly points it at himself. Like, he looks surprised and everything...
But
he's turned on a lightsaber.
Yeah,
we've seen him turn on a lightsaber before because he had to cut open the tauntaun. The tauntaun,
so he knows how to use. Well, he knows how to turn it on.
Yes.
If you press a button, you know how to turn it on.
Yeah.
And you'd probably be surprised too once you get a lightsaber through the chest. like keeping your.
Whoa!
Wow, that hurt way more than I thought it was going to. So the idea that Kylo, because the idea that he's a double agent also follows Darth Vader. Not that Darth Vader was a double agent, but that you get a redemption arc.
Yep.
That redemption arc is not based on. Now, Rey and Leia could continue to help redeem him like Luke did to Darth. But at the same time, you have a reasoning for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Darth got redeemed and he came back to the light, he destroyed the Emperor.
Yep.
So if you have it at the same time that Ren is a double agent, he may fall further to the dark side, but if only so that he can destroy the Sith and destroy the First Order, who super Nazi, like way more Nazi-ish.
Now the one part where this does start to fall apart potentially a little bit is Leia's line, "Come bring our son home."
Right.
So that's kind of interesting, but that could just be she doesn't
know about it.
Well, no, she would know about it. Leia knows things. That's her thing. Leia knows what's up.
Leia.
Like
That's
Leia
true.
knows.
She knows way more than anybody.
Yeah,
like,
no, she just knows. Like that's been her, like that was her force power basically. Like in the original trilogy, she just knows stuff. Yeah. And actually, what's cool is that when you realize that after Return of the Jedi and you go back to things. Look at some of her instincts. Look at her shooting a hole in the wall knowing that it would lead to a trash compactor.
Right.
Why would anybody in their right mind thinking that hitting like a side vent in the floor would actually open up a big enough opening for you to jump through and actually escape, and that the stormtroopers would be afraid enough of what was in there to not actually follow and think that you were going to... Think about that. And she makes calls like that all the time. So, that's the thing about Leia. She knows things.
Yeah.
So what might be the case is that she does not want him to continue his mission.
She knows that he's falling too far, and that it's time to draw him back.
Yeah.
To pull him back. Which would make sense.
Yeah.
Because especially if she's sending Han and she knows that Han... She kind of almost knows. Their goodbye is really a goodbye.
Yeah, it really is.
She knows that this... If only because he's getting older, he's not as fast as he used to be. So this smuggler that dodged stormtroopers and, flew this ship and everything, He's older.
He's older. He does not have the moves that he used to.
Right. So the idea that this is your last mission, but you need to bring him home because otherwise it's going to make it a hell of a lot more difficult to bring him back.
Yep. We
need to pull the plug on this now, kind of thing. Which would make sense.
Which would make sense. And then if that's the case, then it's just a matter of fact that he sees the determination in his son's eyes. I'm not pulling him out of this, and he needs to do this. But we'll see. We will see what that ultimately happens. All right. The other thing that we did want to discuss, because me and Jimmy discussed it, and is Deadpool. Deadpool! So, one of the first things that I just have to say is, that may be the best performance by Ryan Reynolds that we've ever gotten from him.
So, Han Solo, Obi-Wan fangirl.
Mm-hmm.
I have loved Ryan Reynolds since Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Oh my god.
That's how long I've loved him. If you ask me who my favorite actor is, it's Ryan Reynolds.
Really?
Yes. Now, there's some times where he's had shit movies or shit whatever, but I have adored him since Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Wow.
And he went off the radar for a little bit. He did Van Wilder and a bunch of other stupid shit, but Just Friends. It's not served.
Waiting. He is friggin' fantastic.
Just his sense of humor.
Oh,
and
I think
the scathing sarcasm.
Comedically, yes. No, don't get me. Let me rephrase that. Because he is actually a brilliant comedic actor.
Oh, yeah.
He really, really is. He's got a real knack for comedy. What I'm talking about is, as far as dramatic scenes and dramatic tension, this might be the best that we've ever seen him at. Because it's not his shtick, it's not what he normally does, and he's typically shown himself to not be great at it. He kind of gets these moments, but they try not to let him go too far into it.
Yeah.
He gets some real moments to really showcase something that he has clearly been working on for a long time now. In this movie. And you wouldn't expect that from a Deadpool film, but they really do get to the heart of it, which is something that I because they could have just done the slapstick. They could have totally stuck to the slapstick. No, they went, we have got to have a relationship it's not a relationship in comics, but one that is on the same level as Deadpool and Death. Like, we need that level of a relationship, but just before he ever became Deadpool, so we can tell this story and make it all make sense. And that's what they did, and it was... really, like, that relationship is amazing. Like, I just sit there and just like, I want that. Jesus Christ, that is fantastic, what those two have. And, the response of, it's a face I can learn to love to sit on.
Yes. Like, I love, and I agree, and part of the reason that a lot of people like Deadpool is that you get, just in comics in general, you get the slapstick comedy, but then on the turn of it, like the next panel or the next page, he's a very heartfelt character. Like, they always joke, oh, the mercenary with a heart of gold, but he is.
Yeah.
Like, that's just who he is.
He really is, like, a great guy. He just realizes that, like,
he can't get
whether or not it's him pulling the trigger, somebody's going to pull the trigger, he might as well collect.
Right.
And he gets to kind of dictate the terms at that point. Like, if something is just entirely too unjust, he doesn't do it.
Right. He gets to do it on his terms and be in control of that situation.
Now, granted, unfortunately, the problem with that is that he flips his mind about what is just and unjust, like, on the turn of
he's on that scale.
Yeah.
Like, truly a chaotic character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Truly a chaotic neutral character.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, like, he can be a bad guy, he can be a good guy. And, you know, the running joke, oh, I'm not going to join the Avengers, I'm not going to join the X-Men, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't, you know, he does, you know, technically canon he does, but, like, in the MCU, I don't see him playing as a team.
Well, I mean, and that's, of course, whether or not... We still have no idea. Right. Now, granted, Sony's buckled, obviously. Like, we'll talk about that next week. But Sony buckled. We have a Spider-Man now in the MCU and a part of everything. But we're not sure if Fox is going to buckle in the same way. They might not have to. Disney might not be interested enough in doing it. So that's still, like, a lot of things on the table. And I'm sitting here kind of like... Well, I want you to do it, but at the same time, that's totally going to ruin Inhumans, and I want my goddamn television shows to touch the MC. Just let it...
Yeah.
Oh, please, come on. Just let, like, Daredevil and Punisher show up with an Avengers mission. Just, like, one time. Okay. Come on.
Well, I guess, and we'll touch on it next week, too, but I guess originally... So the guy who plays Daredevil on Netflix, Charlie something, he thought that... Or he had heard rumors, or somebody had told him that Daredevil was supposed to be in Civil War.
Shit.
But it was like way early on. When
although that might have just been somebody who had read the comics and like just was saying like, "Well, your character's in it."
Right, and I think it was mostly around the talks of like they weren't sure if they were gonna have Spider-Man or Black Panther or who, because that was the thing was like, and we'll talk about it next week too. That Black Panther, I want to say it was they weren't gonna get Spider-Man, so they put Black Panther in, but because then they got Spider-Man, they withdrew Black Panther just a little bit to have Spider-Man in it.
Yeah, so that they could showcase him a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, Spider-Man's not in it. He's only in it for that fight scene.
He's in it for that fight sequence, which is fine, like, because they just wanted to let us know, hey, we made a deal, and I think you guys are going to be really happy about it. Right. Like, we want to...
Here's the taste of it. Here's what we can do with him.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, we'll get into that all. But the fact is, we don't know whether or not the mutants and Deadpool...
You can't use the M-word.
Right, which is why the Inhumans were going to get their own movie. Right. And which is why some of the mutant characters that they do have rights to are being Inhuman because they can't use mutant.
Right.
But so it's hard to say if he is, but if they do anything, it would be great if he does nothing else but that whole thing that's been going around online where he's just in the kitchen making a chimichanga in the microwave and just says something smart ass like, "Who are you? Wade?"
Yeah.
just like and everyone kind of like thinks to like question it and then just sort of goes back to what they're doing.
But no, I thought it was again a really fun movie that because Marvel's got its comic dramas, it's got its comic comedies. Mm-hmm. Guardians of the Galaxy was a comedy.
Oh, for sure.
You know, the ones that are Ant-Man, comedy. Those ones supposed to stand kind of on their own. Now, you bring Ant-Man in, you bring, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy will be brought into the Avengers kind of thing. But at the same time, this was a comedy in the most, you look up the word comedy.
Deadpool.
And it's
Deadpool. Deadpool is through and through a comedy in so many ways.
Didn't realize that. So the woman who plays Vanessa, if no one's aware, Morena, can't pronounce her last name.
No, dude, it's so fucking...
Inara.
Inara from Firefly.
So the idea, and I leaned over to my fiance, and I leaned over to him when we were watching it on Blu-ray, and I'm like, you know who that is, right? As, I don't remember what scene, I think it was their skee ball scene. I'm like, you realize who that is, right? And he goes, no. I'm like, Inara. The fact that she's got, like, she's so far away from Inara.
From Inara? Well,
and personality.
Which is hilarious because they're both prostitutes.
Right.
Which is amazing!
I'm not that she is like prostitute. But the idea that you're just like, oh my god, she's just this outright just... She is Wade Wilson. She's got that same, like, sense of humor.
Yeah.
And the fact that her crazy matches his crazy. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that line. But it's not like she's the damsel in distress. She's fucking funny as hell.
Yes.
She is so funny. And she holds her own. Yes, she's technically the
damsel in distress. But, like, by set of circumstances, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, not because she is a damsel-y person.
No.
Like, she tries to take the situation into her own hands. There are guns at her head. Like, there's a limited number of... you know, she's not the damsel in distress of, like, oh, I'm going to come along with you because I fear being hurt in any way. No, like, if it came to fisticuffs, she would beat the shit out of you. Like...
Well, and the idea... Because in the comics, Vanessa actually is a mutant. So, and she becomes part of the team. Now, I've seen some theories that, okay, so Ajax, Francis, says the ability to bring out your mutation is high stress levels. That's how, we know that's how the mutant gene works.
Right.
That's why most times when you're a mutant,
it manifests for the first time when you're in danger.
Well, either in danger or during puberty.
Often both, actually.
Most times both. Whether it's a coincidence or not, most times both.
Both, yeah.
So... The idea that, because a lot of people were like, oh, well, how could she survive being thrown off this giant helicarrier, because it's totally a helicarrier, and land, and it doesn't, you know, nothing shatters, and she's not totally dead. She's in a high-stress situation.
So her powers may have just come out, like, right there. Her
powers may have come out.
That would be super
while she's
interesting.
In that capsule. Now, that's just my theory, because I like the idea that she's... Also because I don't like the whole, oh, she survived this, like, giant, like, 100-foot vault.
Yeah, I mean, she was in a thing, but, like, it's like, how much of the impact do you think that thing took, and then how did none of it stab her, and, yeah.
And, like, like, that giant rock that Colossus had to pick up landed on her, and all this other shit.
Yeah.
The idea that she's something more to match Wade... I like that idea.
Yeah, that would be awesome if they do something like that. Although
whether or not they do.
Now, well, because it's interesting because Ryan Reynolds has talked about the fact playing into the bisexual part of the whole thing, where he would be interested in doing a boyfriend for the next Deadpool film. So it would sort of write Vanessa off, potentially. Or maybe they're in a fight and he's having a fling with a guy. I'm hoping that's what they do, that they're in a fight, he's having a fling with a guy, and, like, you get to, like, have that for a little bit, and then he gets Vanessa back at the end.
Yeah.
You know, that would be really cool.
Yeah, not to say that side of him is just a fling, but the idea that their crazies match and their puzzle pieces,
yeah, no, they've set up a great couple, and I don't want them to pull that apart, to be perfectly honest.
Right, just to, necessarily, like, not to make a statement, but just to say something. Now, I've also heard, we went to C2E2 and we sat in on the Deadpool panel. That it wasn't the movie, it was all about the comics. Like, the creator of Deadpool was there, because Deadpool's only, like, 25 years old.
Yeah, no, it was, like, in the late 80s.
I think so. He's one of the younger, like...
Yeah.
Originals, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. He's one of the younger ones. And someone had brought that, like, one of the fans had brought that up. Like, what do you think about his sexuality, like, being bi or pan, or just... I don't care what I fuck as long as I fuck something, or, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the creator, now the other people who have taken over Deadpool were like, you know what, I like drawing him this way, I like writing him this way. I wasn't a big fan of the guy who made him, his answer, because it was a lot of like, well, fans will put up whatever they want, so I just create him, and I just give him his personality, whatever. He kind of, like, blew it off, like, I almost got the sense of, like, I don't like you putting that lens on him. But at the same time, like...
Well, which is kind of fair, actually, because maybe he just thought that it was, like, the most minute part of the character.
It doesn't matter.
Because I think the only reason he made that decision in the first place was that he gives him many more chances to be lewd in situations, which is what Deadpool is about. So, if that was like his whole point, getting constantly asked about that is probably got to be like Joss Whedon constantly getting asked, well, why do you make these strong female characters?
Right, exactly. Why not? So yeah, the idea that, especially the fact that like Ryan Reynolds, this is his passion project. This is, I think, not to say that his career isn't successful, because I think especially with the last 5 to 10 years, that his career, I think, has gotten better. I think Deadpool is what's going to kick him off a little more, because he gets to kind of be himself.
Yeah.
Because if you watch him on like Instagram or on Twitter, his personality, like, he's a little less lewd, but that scathing sarcasm
is still very much there.
It's all very much
there. If you see his Twitter posts at all, like, definitely.
It's all very much there.
Oh my god. Although, still, I have to say, like, I still feel as though, not to any discredit of the movie whatsoever, but the marketing campaign for that movie was actually better than the movie was itself. It was so perfect.
Well, I think the emoji one, he had seen it, and he was like, and I guess they didn't expect him to like that one. And he was like, do that one. Where, if you're not familiar with it, it's the emojis where it's the little skull, the little poop emoji, and then an L. So it's Deadpool. And they put it up on a big billboard on, like, 451 in LA.
I mean, that was, like, only one of 1,000 things that they... So they did that. They did the fake Valentine's Day romantic comedy thing. Oh, my God. I hope a couple of dudes got slapped on that one, because that is just fucking hysterical. Yeah. If you guys didn't catch that one, they literally just showed Ryan Reynolds and... Morena. And it's them sitting there with a bunch of leaves falling around. It's like the most cliche chick flick type of thing. And it's Deadpool, love never dies. And it's just, and it has like a line in there above that about like cancer and stuff, because the whole thing is he's got cancer. That's the whole premise of Deadpool. And it's just like, you think it's this story about we're gonna hang on until your last breath thing, and it's, oh god, it's not that at all. And then on top of that, they did he did testicular cancer awareness commercials, breast cancer awareness commercials.
They did a Viagra one, like an ED one.
Yes.
Which actually, that one they just released with the Blu-ray release.
Yep. But yeah, no, that was the best part, was that the marketing broke the fourth wall, which is, I think, something they really should. Now, here's what I will say, and I get it, because if you actually, because I didn't understand why they'd done this at first, and I had some people explain to me, like, well, dude, you gotta go back and read, like, the earlier Deadpool comics, because you must have come in later if you don't get what's going on with that. Because I had this complaint that, like, we didn't get any kind of representation of him arguing with the yellow box.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't get that type of thing, which could easily be done as, like, just, like, a narrator type of situation. There's a narrator for it, and he's having an argument with the narrator. Well, here's the thing. There's the other voice in his head that's, like, always there and stuff, and whatever. But he doesn't argue with that one as much. The yellow box, apparently, is... Originally, it was a villain who had the same powers as he did. They kill each other. They reform, but Deadpool, for some reason, just wins the lottery and, like, just absorbs him, like, into, like, his regeneration thing. So he's technically both of them, but he's the predominant mind. But the other dude's mind is trapped in his subconscious.
So he hears
that. Here's the crazy part. Eventually, and this is by the time, like, I started picking up the comics, eventually that subconscious is removed and put somewhere else and everything. But his brain got so used to that and is so crazy, it developed an echo of that personality and that voice to fill that gap, because it was used to it being there by that point. So that's the whole thing, is that there's actually this villain that is, like, part of the story arc of him gathering that and, like, having that. So that's probably why they didn't choose to do that. That, like, for all we know, that could be, like, the next move on their part, is that maybe, like, and that's the thing. It wasn't even, like, a huge villain or anything like that. It was just kind of this interesting subplot thing that was going on. So, if, like, really early on he, like, fights a dude who's got, like, does that, and, like, that sort of thing happens, then the rest of the movie is, like, there's this pseudo-narrator or whatever, like, just doing things from that point on. Or maybe, they start, like, a little bit later and then, like, go back to, like, how they became, like, the one person and everything. That might be really cool. I think that would be really good for the next movie, but I can totally get why you wouldn't do it in this one if that's his origin. Because I didn't realize that was the origin of the Yellow Box. I just thought he was crazy.
Well, and I think at the same time, he's telling the story, and he's already breaking the fourth wall, so I think having the Yellow Box would take away... It would be too much.
It would probably be.
I think in a cinematic way, like, you can do it in the comics because there's no voiceover.
Right.
But the fact that I think almost the voiceover and almost like the audience was the yellow box.
Okay.
Because he's, not that I've ever, I've never read anything about it, but my thought is that almost the audience is the yellow box, and because he's talking to us, specifically very much talking to us.
Yes.
And telling us the story, that we are almost the yellow box and having that conversation.
Yes, except that, because my favorite part of the Deadpool comics was the yellow box conversations. And what was interesting about them is that they wouldn't just necessarily just have witty banter, they would have deep philosophical... and that's, I think, the part of it that I missed, is that there wasn't this other voice, at least another voice in his head, questioning, what he was doing as he was doing it and stuff.
Right.
And I think if at least we get the other voice, maybe it doesn't have to be, that, kind of, pseudo-enemy voice that he's constantly at odds with, but I think that was, the best part of it, because you had this other voice who got to constantly play devil's advocate with him, while also sort of, narrating the whole thing.
Now, we might get that in... if he ends up joining the Avengers or another team movie,
that could
where
be...
he's not the voiceover, we might get that.
Yeah, I mean, even if they just didn't have him as the voiceover in the second movie, that would... I think you're right, though. Because he started voicing it over at the beginning, having something else like that would be, it'd be too overwhelming, it'd be whoa. But if you have another voice start, oh, hello and welcome to the film, and oh, God, no, you're not doing this. Well, they want the story told properly, don't they?
Exactly.
That, because that's the dynamic between the two of them, is because the other guy is sadistic and sarcastic, but in a much drier kind of way.
Right.
And so I think that I'm hoping that they pull some of those stops out for the next movie. But it was a phenomenal film.
I really enjoyed it.
So just because I have to, okay. So the scene of he's got the woman sitting there. Is it sexist to shoot you? Is it sexist to not?
It's perfect though, because there is, and to be fair, I'm always a little conflicted where I'm I want the because they always pair the females up against each other. Even in Civil War, they kind of did it a little bit. Not as much. But
not as much, because there wasn't as much room for it. But
generally,
yeah.
when the teams that are fighting have a female on either side, because there's only one on either side generally, they fight. Because it's a fair fight.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't do that in Deadpool, because Angel just fucking wrecks Colossus, which is... she was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved her character. And Colossus in general. And then you've got... was it Negasonic Teenage Warhead?
Yeah.
And
now, those are not her actual powers. She's actually got, in the comic books, she's got more Phoenix-like power, but on a way
right.
kind of scale.
Yeah.
And the reason she named herself that is because it's her favorite band in the comics. But it is actually interesting because her powers in this sort of matched that a little bit better, so there was something cool about that.
Yeah.
And no, she was really, really good.
That line though of do I shoot you? Do I not shoot you? And you don't actually see her. You don't see him shoot her.
Right.
But you can assume that eventually
he probably came to the conclusion of I gotta get out of here.
Right. Exactly. Or she did something that made him not defense, because he's the one that started it, but she did something
defensive from his perspective.
Right. Defensive from his perspective. Exactly. Because they don't pull punches. Angel gets the shit kicked out of her. Vanessa can certainly throw a punch and take one. Francis throws her across numerous stages. So the idea that, just that kind of almost throwaway line, but it does. It shows something that they're just fuck everything.
Yeah.
And we're just going to poke fun at it because it's...
Because there isn't an easy answer, so we're just going to poke at it.
Right.
Because it's hilarious to watch people squirm.
Now, I watched the deleted scenes. They have deleted scenes on the DVD.
Uh-huh.
And there were a couple, the highway scene is way longer.
Oh, okay.
Way longer. The conversation is way different. Not way different, but the way they cut it and they change things, some of the conversation is different. There's one where they're in Mexico. It's him and Vanessa in Mexico at one of their clinics that, treats cancer.
Uh-huh.
And it's a chop shop. Basically, these people pay thousands of dollars. They go in. The doctor pretends to pull out the tumor from the patient's body, but really it's chicken livers.
Mm-hmm.
He pretends to take the tumor out, magically they're fixed. Wade finds out and just slaughters the doctor. You watch him, it's a whole scene that's unedited. all this, like, they finished it. Like, the fight scenes are all finished. Everything's finished. Just slaughters him in front of a waiting room full of people. And the idea, like... And then, so you had that, and then the idea that there was a whole different thing. So all of those montage-y fight scenes, you've got the voiceover of, like, where's Francis? Where's your boss? Where's Francis? The deleted scenes are him, those are hits. So those are the gold cards.
Oh, okay.
They're not Francis's crew. Well, they might be. But he's tossing gold cards at the bartender, who I can't remember now. They're gold cards.
But as he's doing the hits, he's like, hey, by the way, do you happen to know who this person is?
Right, exactly. So, like, it's a little different. So it's interesting to see how they kind of morphed him. And, because Vanessa watches him kill the doctor. So the idea that she doesn't see that part of him, I kind of liked. But the deleted scenes are definitely something to watch, because you see a little bit... The highway scene, fucking funny. Like, the added stuff that they had to get rid of. There's certain scenes, I understand why they cut out certain sentences, because it's too long, but yeah, it's fucking funny. And the bloopers are just hilarious. Like, they're the bloopers for Deadpool, you can only imagine.
I mean, they've got to be fucking hysterical.
They're fucking hysterical. But yeah, I think it's definitely one of my favorite Marvel movies. It was not one of the first Marvel movies, but it was definitely one of the few Marvel movies where I turned to whoever I was sitting with and went, I'm buying the DVD the day it comes out.
That's awesome.
I
mean, it was a phenomenal film, and you're right. That is the fun part, is that, like, things that seem like throwaways actually do have, like, a slightly undertone about. Like that was, I think, my biggest surprise was how much of, like, a pro-female movie, like, whole thing was. It was which you would not expect necessarily from Deadpool, but, like, they kind of went out of their way to be like, actually, here's the thing. You can be this crude and not be a total dick. And here's like how you go about it and everything. And it wasn't over the top or overbearing or like standing on a soapbox or anything. Just very subtle and just like, maybe a chick can take herself in a fight with a guy. Like, you know, like, maybe we don't have to pansy foot around fucking ever. Maybe, you know, like,
he just kind of says it.
Just kind of says it. It's just there, and it's very cool. And I noticed those undertones throughout the film. But again, they were undertones. They really, like, because sometimes some people like to harp on messages, and that is, like, you know, girl power is one that tends to get overhyped, and sometimes, like, sort of, like, patronizing to a certain extent.
Yeah, where they try too hard to have it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, look what we did. It's almost like a little kid who's like, look what we did. We did
the thing.
We expected you to do that.
Yeah,
we shouldn't have to reward you and give you a gold star for including more than one female character in a movie.
Yep.
I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to pat you on the head and be like, good job!
Like, just,
I just
do that. I mean, we're going to a mild extent, probably, because it's the world that we live in, and it's nice to, like, see when something looks a little bit more, like, rational and normal and everything like that. But yeah, no, both Star Wars... Deadpool, really good. I'm glad we were able to get you in here on this for that. Because, you know, it was something that, like, we wanted to make sure we had your opinions going into on that. We may do another one of these when you finally get around to seeing Batman vs. Superman. Because
once it comes out on DVD, I might.
I know. We'll do it on the DVD. I understand. Me and the professor were both convinced that it was worth seeing in theaters. But I can understand if you were kind of hesitant on that. Like, it's
also a lot of, if I don't see a movie at midnight,
it's just not going to wind up happening.
And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, are we going to go see that at midnight? And we're like, probably not. Because our household's very much Marvel, too. And we've talked about this, you know, the Superman, the Batman, just the constant... It's just like the Spider-Man thing. The constant reiteration of their origins. The constant reiteration of this character that we've seen so many times.
No, the one thing that I will say, again, I like the fact that they did it like that. There are parts about the sequence that are a little... Why? And the fact that the sequence exists is for literally one thing that's the dumbest thing in the film. However, being that they decided that they had to go through the motions of Bruce Wayne's death, they do it during the credit sequence at the beginning.
You were telling me that, yeah.
Which is, I think, the best way that you possibly could have done that and still had it in the film, because it isn't super annoying that way. It's just kind of, it's a reestablishment as opposed to a retelling, and I thought that was a strong choice. I thought it was one of the few strong choices in the script and directing, but, we'll talk about it more when you get a chance to see it, but, really, it's some of the actors, particularly in that film, that actually make that film worth seeing, and it's some of the design, because the design for that film was very comic book inspired and really good. But we'll get into that. Anyway, check out next week. We're gonna be bringing the show back. It's gonna be super exciting. We like to do the show radio style, so we're probably just gonna have like a picture of our lovely faces up and not have like the totally crummy video. But we'll see. We haven't totally committed to that yet, so we'll see what winds up happening by next week. But we'll see you guys then. You all have an excellent evening.
Bye.